Okay, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on our second coronavirus update webinar. My name is Eric Rodell, and I'm the Business and Political Engagement Manager here at People for Bikes. We have a lot of material to run through today, so we'll get started here. We want to take a brief moment to thank our 200 plus coalition members who support our work in Washington, D.C. every day and at the state and local level. We could obviously not do this very important work without your membership dues. So thank you all very much. We'd also like to thank our over 1,000 RideSpot retailers, advocacy organizations, and affiliates. Please do consider using RideSpot to show your customers some great and safe places to ride during this very difficult time for all of us. Your presenters today are Alex Logeman, our Policy Counsel here at People for Bikes, Noah Banian, our Federal Affairs Manager at People for Bikes, and Charles Cooper, the Managing Director at the Signal Group in Washington, D.C. So today we'll be giving some major updates throughout the webinar on the current state of affairs, what we're doing to react and plan for bike business reactions, and then we'll be giving out plenty of resources for bike businesses, what we may be able to expect moving forward, and we'll have some time available at the end for your questions. Please do remember that this situation changes very rapidly. New information is coming out on a very frequent basis and should be followed closely. We'll be sending out a recording with the links to all the resources we discussed today as a follow-up, and we'll have the recording available on our website and YouTube channels as well. Our resources page is updated regularly, so you can keep up with everything that is happening around the news cycle on this and how it's going to affect your business. With all that, I will hand things over to Noah to get us started.
Thanks, Eric, and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate everyone taking the time, and I know that these are tough times right now for anyone, well, just for everyone, but for those of us in the business and in the industry, it can be difficult. There they are. Okay, so we are just going to walk through some of the resources that have recently become available and some existing resources from the federal government and potentially your state governments. We'll follow up with this with a lot of links that you can use to take advantage of certain resources, whether they be grants, loans, other types of federal relief options, and other actions that you can take to help protect your business, protect your employees, and protect the future of your company. That's all in our best interest here. So just to really paint a picture of where we're at, just on the economic side of things, this morning the Department of Labor put out their weekly reports. And last week, there was 6.648 million Americans who applied for unemployment. Again, this is just last week alone, so that's a record high number, unfortunately. And in the past 2 weeks, when you look at the numbers, it's nearly 10 million. So we know that this is certainly a part of the bike industry, and we want to make sure that you can do what you can as employers and as employees to protect yourselves, your resources, and the future of your employment and your company. We have plenty of resources available on our website that we want to highlight a bit on this webinar. I will kick this over to Alex Logeman, who handles our state policy work and manages that department, and he can talk about this really comprehensive spreadsheet that he's put together and is continually updating. So with that.
Thanks, Noah, and thanks to everybody for joining us this morning. One of the first issues that came up on the policy front as the coronavirus crisis has spread throughout the country is what would bicycle companies be allowed to do, and what would bike riders be allowed to do with all of the various state and local orders that are being implemented to minimize our activities and close certain types of businesses. And on the whole, as many of you probably know, bicycle businesses and bike shops are being permitted to stay open in most jurisdictions, or don't have any current restrictions on them. But as soon as this issue sort of exploded, we really took a three-step approach to how we wanted to engage. The first thing we wanted to do was collect all of the information. We figured if we didn't know what was going on out there, it'd be hard to be strategic about how we wanted to engage with elected officials and provide useful information to the industry as well. So we developed this spreadsheet that is in front of you now, or a clip of it's in front of you, and it's available on our website, that captures all of the state orders that have been implemented across the United States. And it provides essentially 3 pieces of information for each of those states: how it affects bicycle warehousing operations, how it affects bike shops, and then whether bike riding as an activity is permitted under each of those orders. So with this, we've endeavored to be very factual and provide you with links to all of the underlying orders and everything you might need to ascertain the status of your state orders where you live. Of course, there are also local orders. There are so many local jurisdictions that those are not included on the spreadsheet. But you should always make sure you're checking with any orders that might have been issued at the municipal or county level as well. So once we had our database of what was going on around the country, we wanted to engage to make sure we could put out the hotspots for where biking was not being recognized, or where maybe if it was unclear whether bike shops could stay open, and work with retailers, work with suppliers, work with government officials to provide that clarity and have bike businesses recognized as an essential activity. And the third prong of this was, here's some of the talking points that I think are key to engaging on this issue. Interestingly, this crisis, I think, has put renewed emphasis on bike riding as a really critical transportation mode for Americans all throughout the country. There are a lot of folks in a lot of places who might routinely use other types of transit services to get where they're going, and now that's not such an appealing option with the desire to maintain social distancing protocols to other people, and the bike is a really fantastic option. So keeping these resources open so people can still continue to move around to the central jobs they have and to stay healthy and recreate is pretty essential. And I think these arguments have been really well received by elected officials in most communities. And the last thing that we wanted to work on was that there is a federal document issued by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, that is sort of the foundation for a lot of these state and local orders. And the first document that identified what the essential critical infrastructure workforce was in the US was issued on March 19th, 2020. And it said nothing about bicycles at all. They were totally absent from that document. And so we knew that CISA was going to release a second version of this document, and we worked very hard to ensure that bicycles would be included and recognized in that second document. The new version was released on March 28th and specifically recognizes bicycle maintenance and service as part of the essential critical infrastructure workforce. This is a small excerpt, but it's actually mentioned in 2 bullet points in that report. So I think this is really crucial for all the states that issued orders subsequent to March 28th because they rely very heavily on this document. And it also had the effect of actually changing the orders in a few states that were adopting that report, plus any future amendments to that report. In some of those states like Texas and Louisiana, it wasn't clear whether bike shops could stay open from the outset. But with this amended report, that issue, at least as far as bike repair and bike maintenance goes, is pretty clear since they've adopted the amended guidance. The last thing I want to note is that I think we all owe a big thank you to a few people who were sort of on the front lines of this in some cities around the country, like Philadelphia and San Francisco. Those were some of the first orders that came out, and bike shops were very quickly recognized. And that really helped springboard all of the future state orders that were implemented, and helped People for Bikes sort of, work on this issue and spread those points to other states and create a strong majority of jurisdictions that were allowing it. So those few key areas up front were really pivotal in sort of this broader movement. And thanks to retailers, suppliers, advocates, and all those communities who did that work. With that, I'll turn it back over to Noah to talk more about other federal actions.
Thanks, Alex. So As you all, I'm sure, are aware, a lot has been happening in DC up until the end of last week. Congress has been working to pass stimulus packages they've done 3. The first one was for emergency medical supplies and relief, things like that, so not super relevant to the bike industry. And then the second and the third contain some provisions and tax programs that are worth looking into if you and your company are feeling any type of heat and pain in this time. So just a brief timeline. March 18th, the president signed second stimulus package into law. This includes expanded paid sick leave and FMLA benefits for small business employees. On March 27th, Congress greatly expanded on that package with over $500 billion and within a $2 trillion relief package specifically for small businesses, and with added unemployment protections and expansion of unemployment for employees that were not originally eligible, and programs like the payroll protection program, economic injury, disaster loans, and other significant programs that Charles will go into a bit. And then just a day later, we got word from CISA that Alex had mentioned, releasing guidance that would include bicycle maintenance as essential, which, as he said, it doesn't have authority over states except where in state orders they reference CISA guidance and future updates of CISA guidance to determine what remains closed and what is considered essential in their state or locality. Right now, Congress is out until April 20th. At least that's the plan today, and it has been. It's possible that'll go on longer, just to avoid putting all these people in the same room in DC and to avoid travel. But there is certainly talk of a 4th stimulus package and concurrent packages thereafter. There's strong focus right now from a lot of folks who are drafting these bills and with support from the president to include infrastructure, a really hefty another $2 trillion infrastructure package within the next stimulus bill. So that bodes well for biking, and we're certainly going to be taking advantage of that momentum and building on it with our asks to the Hill. I will kick this over to Charles to explain a bit more about the Paycheck Protection Program.
Great, thank you so much, Noah, and thank you, Alex. Before I get started, I would just highlight that really applaud the team of People for Bikes for all the work they're doing on all of this, and also the great resource page that Eric mentioned at the beginning of the call. If you haven't visited that page, please do at some point. It not only provides timely updates on all the relief packages and everything else going on as it relates to the COVID-19 response, but it also provides really helpful links to federal agencies where all the guidance is for the programs that you may want to access in the weeks and months ahead. So we're getting a lot of questions and there's a lot of interest in the protection program. So I'll start there. This is a provision in the last bill that essentially provided $349 billion in federally guaranteed loans to businesses that have 500 employees or less. The really positive news on this is that a portion of that loan can be forgiven, and the loan can be used essentially for payroll costs, salaries, wages, separation pay, and vacation and sick pay. So it's a pretty generous loan program. It actually kicks off tomorrow. The applications are already available, and we'll move on after that. And again, it's all 500 and less employee businesses are eligible for this program. Of all the things that Congress has passed, this is the one where loan forgiveness is available. So there's a lot of coverage on CARES and the ability to provide small businesses with what essentially results as a partial grant. And this is that program, the Paycheck Protection Program. So if you haven't looked at this already, it's worth looking at the guidelines, reviewing it closely. Again, there's more information on our site. There's more information on the Small Business Administration and the Department of the Treasury's website. Make sure it aligns with your business, obviously, and make sure that the professionals that you work with in accounting and legal divisions review all the guidelines first. But this is a pretty generous program that I know a lot of small businesses are taking advantage of. A few other pieces that I just wanted to mention on that front. There's a refundable payroll credit, which is essentially available for 50% of wages paid to employers during the COVID-19 crisis. It's up to $10,000 per employee. There's also a deferment of Social Security tax. Employers can elect to defer that payment but it has to be paid over the following 2 years. So it provides a little bit of flexibility there. On the economic injury disaster loan that's being implemented by the SBA, again, a lot of really good materials on the SBA's resource page on that, but it's essentially $2 million or less dollar loans for small businesses as well as self-employed individuals, and that actually does come with a $10,000 grant. So that's a pretty generous loan. There's some specifics around that obviously you'll want to align with your own business, and it's on a little bit of a different timeline as the others. And then lastly, the expansion of unemployment insurance. This is something that Congress pretty aggressively moved forward on, and it expands the current UI benefits to help those that have been furloughed or lost their jobs. And then I also wanted to mention 301 tariffs. People for Bikes has been pretty aggressively involved in the debate around tariffs, given that there's a significant impact to the bicycle industry. And so this slide highlights a number of the activities that People for Bikes has engaged in, joining with other partners and industry organizations to encourage the administration to reverse tariffs as a response to help boost economic growth. And we continue to work on that. I think there's a robust movement within the business community to try to address these issues. There's a number of members of Congress and senators that are also echoing this call for tariff relief. And at this point, the administration has not provided a lot of flexibility in that regard. But obviously that debate continues, and People for Bikes will be actively engaging there and monitoring it, and we'll be providing updates via the resource page as well on the People for Bikes website. And then I will push it back over to Alex and Noah.
Thanks, Charles, for that really comprehensive overview. So a little bit more on what we're taking action on in this time and why it matters to the industry. Outdoor recreation is obviously in a really interesting place right now. We know there are some places closing access to trails and parks because of overcrowding and the need to social distance, but we also know that's because people are looking for new ways to entertain themselves and falling in love with the outdoors in this crazy time, and especially with bikes. So we have joined our colleagues and friends at the National Recreation and Parks Association alongside the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable and others to make sure Congress is hearing from us, the outdoor industry, the need to support safe transportation options in the outdoors and recreation. So we are just continuing this drumbeat of ensuring that recreation and public lands are heard and the needs are met for their maintenance in this crazy time. And once this is over, that when we have so many more trail lovers and outdoor advocates, we have a place for them too. And for folks that are curious, this is also on our website, but the latest that we have out of outdoor agencies or land management agencies are here from the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Forest Service. So some of these are pretty vague, i.e. new guidance being provided regularly. So if you are going to go outside into any of these specific land units or are advising any customers, just make sure that you are checking their websites and staying up to date as best you can. And we're trying to make sure you have those resources. And again, just some more examples of what we found out there for state closures and guidance. So this is also listed on our webpage that you'll get. So you'll be able to stay updated as we find more information about these places. Lastly, just to plug, you've been mentioning this the entire webinar. All of this information that we're presenting to you now is available on our resources page. We have a template letter if you're a retailer or an independent small bike business looking to classify in your state as essential and how you would do that. We have that tracking spreadsheet that is being updated, I think, honestly, by the minute at this point, and kudos to Alex on that. So you can find that and see it being edited in real time as states and localities make changes to their restrictions. We are continually providing updates and making sure that information is available online for any relief opportunities that become apparent for small businesses. And again, tracking the outdoor recreational closures. So great. And from here, I'll just kick it over to Charles so he can give us some more of an outlook of what to expect in DC.
Thank you, Noah. And obviously, as you all know better than anyone, you know, the current situation is certainly a bit uncertain. And I think that aligns with how Congress is approaching this. I think Congress and the administration are looking at additional responses, but will do so in coordination with where the COVID-19 spread is, and also the broader impact both to the health of communities as well as the health of the economy. One thing, as Noah mentioned at the top of the call, Congress is not scheduled to come back before April 20th. It's very possible that date gets pushed back even further. But they are looking at additional relief packages, at least two, which are commonly referred to as phase 4 and phase 5. As Noah mentioned, phase 4 is going to be grounded in infrastructure, and a big portion of that is transportation and the reauthorization of the broad every 6-year surface transportation bill. That includes programs that provide significant funding to bicycle infrastructure. And so we have been working those issues significantly for years to try to position the House and Senate to provide robust funding in a number of categories and a number of new policy solutions that would create more opportunities for bikes and bike businesses. So we are hopeful that phase 4 does include a significant amount of infrastructure and transportation funding, and we are working closely with Congress and the administration on that front. We would note that because of the uncertainty of the broader situation, it is very possible that that infrastructure piece gets moved off and they decide to take up something that's a little bit more near term and immediate. The infrastructure phase 4 bill is supposed to be focused on rebuilding the economy with somewhat of a stimulus package. So we are very hopeful there. But again, I want to be clear on the timing. The timing is supposed to happen sometime after April 20th. There's still disagreement between members of Congress on what exactly should be in that. The policy hasn't fully been drafted yet. And because of the ongoing situation, it's possible we may need to be a little bit flexible there on timing. But I can assure you that in addition to the programs that we talked about today, there's a number of administrative programs that are happening that are supporting small businesses. You'll see those either on our website or on the SBA's resource page. and I would expect that there's more to come on that front. I think Congress and the administration, by the nature of the 3 bills that they've already signed, have really tried to prioritize small businesses and those who are working for small businesses. And I would expect that as they analyze the broader economic outlook, they'll be responding with additional either direct assistance through the administration and federal agencies or through congressional action. So be on the lookout for that. We'll keep you updated on the next package. And again, as we've said many times on this webinar, check back on the resource page at People for Bikes, and we will certainly provide real-time updates to the point that we can, as well as useful resources for you to go investigate these programs through the agencies that are implementing them. So with that, Eric, back to you. Thank you so much for including us.
Great. Thank you, Charles, Alex, and Noah for all of that information. There's something in here for everybody that has to do with the bike business or riding bikes. We all appreciate this information a ton. So we do want to make a quick note here that our next webinar is going to dive a little bit more into the weeds on the Small Business Association loans and a little bit more detail on how to go about obtaining those. That will be on this coming Tuesday, April 7th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. I'll be sending around a registration link for that with the follow-up email with the recording and the resources link. Now, for the fun part, we've got some questions here, and we'll move through these as they come through. So the first one we have here is from our friend Ray. Hi, Ray. When you went to jurisdictions in Colorado where bikes were not included in the initial essential service orders, did it seem more like an oversight, or were you having to change people's minds more so? Alex, Noah, any word on this?
Yeah, Eric, this is Alex. I'll take that one. It is the issue is more oversight than deliberate attempts to not include bicycle shops. In most of these states, the status of bike shops was just something that the governor's office or the health officials had not considered. And as soon as we put some information in front of them as to what other states had been doing, the matter was resolved pretty quickly. There are a couple outliers there where there was some resistance, in Michigan and New Mexico to some extent, but for the most part, more oversight than opposition.
Awesome, thanks. So next question here from Maria. For the payment protection program, do you know if you can use it to cover subcontractors? Noah, Charles?
That is a really good question. I would have to either refer you to the guidance. I'm not sure on that. That's in the guidance that was just recently released. Either refer you to the guidance that's on the SBA and Treasury websites, or if you leave us a comment, we can get back to you with a link to the appropriate information.
Great, thank you, Charles. For small business loans, when's that going to be made available? I think the answer to that is April 3rd, correct?
Correct. There's 2 categories of it. And the first category, which includes small businesses with 500 employees or less, that starts tomorrow. The application period starts tomorrow. There's some others for contractors and such that start on the 10th. But for small businesses under 500, it would start tomorrow.
Great. So a question on the service and repair being considered essential per the guidelines. Fred asks, what about bicycle and accessory sales? Any guidance on those?
Yeah, this is Alex. It's going to depend on the specific order that your jurisdiction has implemented. In a number of states, just the bike shops, and I use that in quotation marks, bike shops have been designated as an essential business without any particular restrictions on service and repair operations versus sales operations. So in those states, the allowance to operate is quite broad. And our assumption is that that includes sales. Other states have used language that's a little more fine-tuned and specific to service and repair, and there may be restrictions on sales of complete bicycles and accessories in those states. Our assumption is that, of course, you could sell the necessary service parts as you perform the service, but there may be restrictions in some areas on the service of non-parts.
Thanks, Alex. A question here from Lewis. Do we expect to deliver reporting on sales across the industry in the near future? Lewis, we come up with an MPD report for our coalition members on a nearly monthly basis. So if you're interested in receiving those reports, please do shoot me an email, ericb@peopleforbikes.org, and we'll get you set up with our membership director. How can we follow up with Charles on Phase 4 infrastructure stimulus package? Charles, I guess that one's for you.
Sure. I think the best way to do it is to actually reach out to NOAA, who is leading on the federal issues, and I'm helping the team out with that. So that's NOAA, N-O-A, at peopleforbikes.org, and we work together as a team so we can handle any of the issues that you have. And frankly, if you have additional suggestions, we'd love to hear that as well. We want to make sure that we're positioning the bike industry in as favorable a way as possible to get not only relief, but new, innovative, and modernized infrastructure that includes infrastructure for bikes.
And thank you, Charles. And Jeff, just a quick follow-up on that. We'll be continually updating our resources page too. So when you do hear something about Phase 4 infrastructure through NPR or whatever that is, you can most likely go and check our resources page, and we'll have some good information up there for some guidance on getting connected to those agency websites. One more here from Robert. Are those payment protection program loans all handled via local banks?
That's a good question. It's a little bit of a mix. It is partially done that way. And again, the guidance will point that out. So we will get you the guidance. The way that a lot of these different loans are being handled, they're all being handled a little bit differently. So it's important to follow the specific guidance for the specific loan you're looking for. And again, that guidance is available on our resource page.
Great. Well, that is about all the time that we have for today, folks. Please do find our follow-up message in your inboxes. We'll have a recording, the list of resources on our webpage, as well as a link to register for that next webinar on the Small Business Association loans next Tuesday. Thank you all so much for participating today, and we will be in contact soon.